What's going on, folks? And we're back from break, and joining me live is Andrew Hauser. And before we left for break, we were talking about just the elections in general, and talking about, your perspective on them. And being in the industry, I'm pretty sure you have a unique perspective from that standpoint as well. So how does that kind of play out in your world?
Well, so over the last two election cycles and leading into this one, it seems like the consumer has almost been trained to panic buy guns and ammo immediately leading up to it because certain things are going away, are going to be taken away, or not available. And it's created almost an artificial supply chain, supply and demand. And so it makes it complicated to run a business, to make sure that you've got what the customer needs, to make sure that when they come in a week after, it's going to be there. So it's definitely on everybody's minds. We haven't seen it to the extent this time around that we saw in the previous elections. But it's definitely still happening.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you definitely have guys this morning, for example, you got a lot of guys buying ammunition. You got a lot of guys looking at high cap mags or 30-round mags. You've got all those, the normal items that folks pick up during the election cycle.
Yeah. I'm torn in a lot of ways because, in one sense, I get it, because we do have actual threats to our ability to own firearms in this country to a degree, and especially when we're dealing with someone like potentially having a president like Hillary Clinton, who has been very vocal about being against the notions of the Second Amendment as seen or has been ruled on as far as the Heller decision is concerned. So I can understand the panic buying from that standpoint, but I believe you're absolutely right. It's a pattern now. Any election, whether it's midterm or primary, it definitely, I know there are going to be people out there, and I don't know if you've ever gotten this, but I mean, you have people who are like, well, you should actually like this. I know you kind of spoke on it briefly, but you should love something like this because it helps your gun sales.
Yeah, we get that a lot. Y'all should love these politicians. You should love these cycles. They're the firearms seller in chief, and you see the NICS background checks and the numbers that came out from October. And yeah, I mean, it helps. Don't get me wrong. We got to pay employees. We have to. It helps to have sales. It's hard to run a business whenever it's very extreme ups and downs. To your point, I think it's right. There's some truth to it. I mean, I think back to that guy in the early part of you could have bought a Tommy gun or owned one of those things. Said, oh, those will be around forever. I'll always with this, that, or the other, and I could have bought it for $16. Is that 10 years from now, are you going to be that guy that says, man, I could have walked down and bought whether it's an AR or a pistol that holds 15 rounds, or whether it's ammunition that's $13 a box for 50, pick it. Or it's hard to tell if it's something that's going to be, if those are going to be around for a while and protected by our Constitution, or if somebody's going to come after it, which they've been vocal about coming after.
Yep. I mean, I hear from Darren Lasorda all the time. Darren was raised in the 20s, so he talks about all the guns that he could have possibly bought, and now that he wish he had bought. And in many ways, it's kind of like. But then again, it's like, what do we say? What do we say? No, don't go out there and panic buy whatsoever. Don't go buy that gun that otherwise you probably would have bought anyway, just later on down the line, right? And it's weird because they almost try to vilify us for that, almost as if we create the sensationalism. And I'm like, no, if you would just shut up talking about all this gun control stuff, we wouldn't have these issues, or at least the perceived issues as they see them. Yeah. So I don't know. And I'm trying to think if I've ever been involved in any panic buying. I'm pretty sure I've bought my fair share of magazines as a result of some potential legislation coming down the line. But in a sense, though, I think this is rather unique from the standpoint that we have somebody potentially who might be the president who was the wife to the very person who was responsible for the assault weapons ban.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm in the industry, and I panic bought over the last month or so. And I hesitate to use the term panic buy, but if you look and go, hey, I did add a couple of suppressors. I did go out and buy, hey, I found some cheap ammo, found a deal on it. I went ahead and put it back. It's not perishable. I think that to your point, there's some folks who are out there trying to buy some of this stuff, hoping that it goes up, and then you'll see them to make a profit off of it. I'm not talking about those guys.
Yeah.
I think that there's some validity to if there's some of these things that you are going to shoot that you always wanted to have, yeah, you going to be that guy that wishes he did it, or you going to be that guy that's got it at the house?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in a weird way, though, too, when I think about it, it's kind of like, you know, there's almost like this backhanded kind of vilifying of firearm purchasing in general. You know, because I hear a lot of people on the other side who are like, oh, that's just something you gun manufacturers are all responsible for this panic buying and causing all these people to go out there and buy guns, as if going out and buying guns is a bad thing. You know,
there's a stigma. I mean, I tell you, I got my hair cut the other day, and my normal person wasn't there, and I had a new lady that's sitting there, and of course she wants to talk, and she's used to doing that. I'm usually quiet. And she said, well, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I'm a firearms manufacturer.
Yeah.
And she didn't talk the rest of the time on my haircut. I mean, I could have said I make, meth at the house, and she probably
would have been okay with it, right? She would have been like, oh, really, got something to sell?
Yeah. I'm out. As soon as she said gun, as soon as I said gun, it was quiet.
You know, the last time I went to California, I was on a flight, and I was sitting next to this woman. And we got to talking. She started kind of asking me questions, and I usually, once I kind of have these kind of these kind of conversations with people, I know where it's going, right? And then that question comes up. So, like, what do you do? You know, things like that. So we got to talking, and I just assumed, to be honest with you, that she was just this kind of super liberal, California girl who's just like, guns, ew, I don't want any parts of that. And we were about a 3-4 hour flight. And the whole time I'm talking in code. Like, I'm not, like, she still doesn't really know what I do, but she's bringing up the issue of firearms, and I'm going about it the way I normally do, but just without her knowing who the hell I am. Right. And, and so what was interesting, though, was when she didn't know who I was, and she felt she was just talking to a regular person who had a different perspective, she was really more receptive and open-minded to what I was saying. Right. I saw a slight change when I mentioned what I do with the NRA. Nothing changed. My tone's still the same. Everything I was saying was the same. But I feel like, we've been conditioned in many ways, or a lot of people have been conditioned to despise certain things, to despise certain groups, to hate certain things, and not even realize why they hate them. Right. And it's interesting to me in that regard for a lot of people out there who just don't know or have very much information on what the NRA actually does. Most people couldn't even tell you what the acronym means, but they're like, I hate the NRA. Well, what do they do? What are they? They're a shooting club, right? And I'm like, no, like, so ignorance definitely isn't bliss, especially when we're talking about people who are never going to go out there and vote. But what I want to talk about now is what you do exactly. Like, somebody asked you, what is Modern Outfitters? Because I feel like it's more than just being a gun store. Am I not correct?
Oh yeah, retail is a very small part of what we are. In fact, we tell people we have gun stores because we just don't like other gun stores. And no offense to those of you out there that have some really great stores. But we're first and foremost, we aspire. We are a manufacturer. We aspire to be a relevant manufacturer, not to be the biggest, not to have the most products, but to be really good at what we do. And what started out as us working on AR platform rifles has matured to where we just launched our first bolt gun. We do a lot on pistol customization, specifically on Glocks. We've gotten into the training realm and hunting realm. And really, it's more exactly what you were saying. And it's funny, look at kids. My kids will wear a Modern Outfitters shirt. It's a lifestyle. Yeah. And what it is, and for us, and it's how we conduct our business, but we want to be men and women of integrity who are not ashamed to own firearms, who are not ashamed to go hunting, who are not ashamed to support law enforcement and military, and not ashamed to speak out on our beliefs. Yeah. And we want to make the best product available, backed with a lifetime warranty that is awesome.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's a lot of stuff out there. We're never going to be everywhere. We want to play in our niche. Of course, we would like to grow and make a living at this, which God has blessed us with so far. And that's really what we are. We're not going to be all things to all people. We just want to be really good at the few things that we do.
Now, with the modern designation in the name, is that something that you guys are playing towards, like the idea of kind of being the modern version of basically outfitting us with all of the beautiful, wonderful things that we get to play with nowadays, right? Because I mean, I walked into the store when I first walked into the store in Dallas. This is before I met you, and I believe Brandon was there. But I just kind of browsed in really quickly and kind of looked around. It has a rather different feel than what you're typically accustomed to when you go into a gun store. Is that on purpose?
Yes, it is. So what we're going for as far as the look and feel, and it's funny, even our rifle designated the product name, the Modern Carbine, and how many people say carbine and all that.
Yeah.
It's a play on, the old infantry or cavalry side. But really we want kind of an REI showroom, Apple store meets gun store, and not the same stereotypical. I walk in, it smells musty, these crappy glass, secondhand display cases from Zales, and they got the same exact product. It's displayed in the exact same way.
Yeah.
It's just not us. We want it to be a hands-on place where folks, if you're not familiar with guns, we want you to feel comfortable coming in. Bring your kids, your wife, women, children, in a non-threatening, lots of natural light in a nice part of town. Let's talk about guns. There's nothing to be ashamed of talking about owning a gun or wanting to own one. And by that same token, if it's, a SWAT officer that walks in, you want to get more technical, we got those guys in the store too. But that's what we're going for. So many gun stores, it's hey, don't touch, stay behind that line.
Yeah.
And I'm the all knower of everything. Man, there's too many products out there. There's too many things out there for everybody to know everything.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in saying, hey, I've never heard of that caliber. Can you tell me about it? Or I've never heard of this type of firearm. How do I do this? What's better? And that's what we're going for.
Gotcha. I thought it was interesting too because you guys are located in not the most conservative part of Dallas. You know what I mean? You guys are essentially in the art district, which I think is awesome because I look at guns and I think they're art. Thus far, have you had a couple of people stumble into the shop and kind of like, wait, hold on, holy this is a gun store?
Oh yeah. That's the number one question is why'd you put the store here? We'll get folks walk in, and it's funny. Some people turn around and immediately leave. Some people walk around. Some people say, hey, we thought it was a furniture store, and we're like, we got furniture. It's Magpul. But yeah, you get a lot of that, and our answer was exactly that. We did not want to be the stereotypical gun store located in a strip mall next to whatever, a rundown. We wanted to be in a nice part of town that, and hopefully, and I'm not saying it's a divine. We're not on a mission from God on this, but we do want to educate people. There's nothing wrong with having a gun. There's nothing wrong with buying a gun. And whatever we can do to encourage folks who walk in that have never thought about it, then we're going to do that.
I think it's awesome from the standpoint that I think people underestimate the cultural war when it comes to the issue of firearms in this country. I think the other side has it down packed. They've been manipulating the cultural component of the gun debate in this country for a long time now. So much so that people think they know about firearms until they meet someone like me or you, and then we have to kind of embarrass them. and it's because they're getting their information from all the wrong places. I think a store like this, put in the area that it's in, does a lot from the cultural standpoint. There's a normalcy that ends up happening when you're used to. You're going to get people who probably walked in and then walk right out, but then they're driving by the place every single day, and inevitably they're going to get curious again and then walk back in knowing what it is, and then they realize, okay, I can kind of get down to this because there is an atmosphere in the store that I really, really loved. Of course, for me being the gun geek that I am, there's a certain quality to the kind of old school musty mother's basement feel to some gun stores. But I remember vividly walking in and was like, okay, I like this place, and I hadn't even looked at anything yet. So I think that's pretty cool that you guys are kind of approaching it from that angle, and I think a lot more stores need to really kind of think about doing that from that standpoint too, because I don't think we benefit at all from being fringe. I don't the whole idea and the concept of us being fringe. You don't have an organization as powerful as the NRA with over 5 million members, and then still the fact that they can still marginalize us and call us fringe is incredible to me. I'm still trying to figure that out. But nonetheless, I think it's pretty awesome. Now we're gonna go to a quick break here, and when we come back, We're going to do some talking about some of the guns that you guys build, especially the custom bolt-action high precision rifle that I'm building with you guys as well. So I'm looking forward to talking about that when we come back from break.
Awesome.